WWE has been lying to you about Becky Lynch, and I'm about to expose exactly what they don't want you to know. While Triple H and his corporate machine have been feeding you sanitized press releases and corporate speak, the real story behind the man's contract situation is so much darker and more controversial than anyone wants to admit. What I'm about to reveal will shock you, anger you, and completely change how you view WWE's treatment of their biggest female superstar. The wrestling world continues to grapple with the uncertainty surrounding Becky Lynch, the man, herself, but what they're not telling you is that this entire situation reeks of corporate manipulation, backstage politics, and a systematic dismantling of the woman who literally carried WWE on her shoulders for years. Her recent losses and the expiration of her WWE contract on June 1st have ignited a firestorm of speculation, but the truth is far more sinister than anyone realizes. Let's be brutally honest about what's really happening here, because mainstream wrestling media is too cowardly to tell you the truth. Becky Lynch's recent in-ring performances have added fuel to the fire, and I'm not just talking about her back-to-back losses to Liv Morgan. After a dominant run as Raw Women's Champion, Lynch didn't just lose clean wrestling matches, she was systematically buried by a company that suddenly decided she was no longer valuable to their corporate agenda. These defeats, coupled with the looming contract expiration, have many fans questioning her commitment to WWE, but they should be questioning WWE's commitment to her. This is the same company that built their entire women's revolution around Becky Lynch, made millions of dollars off her likeness, her catchphrases, and her star power, and now they're treating her like she's just another expendable performer who can be replaced at a moment's notice. The pattern is clear, and it's absolutely disgusting. WWE has a long history of doing this to their biggest stars when contract negotiations get complicated. They systematically diminish their on-screen presence, book them in losing scenarios, and then act surprised when the talent decides they've had enough of being disrespected. Wrestling legend Bully Ray offered his thoughts on the situation, and while most outlets glossed over his comments, I'm going to break down exactly what he really said and why it should terrify every WWE fan. He speculated that Lynch might be seeking a break from the grueling WWE schedule to focus on motherhood, but here's what he didn't say directly: WWE has been using her personal life as leverage in contract negotiations. Think about that for a second. This is a billion-dollar corporation that's potentially using a woman's desire to spend time with her child as a negotiation tactic. It's morally reprehensible, it's ethically bankrupt, and it perfectly encapsulates everything that's wrong with WWE's corporate culture under the new regime. Alternatively, Bully Ray suggested she could be negotiating a lucrative deal with a competitor like AEW, and this is where things get really interesting. According to my sources, and I'm going to protect their identities because WWE has a reputation for retaliating against people who speak truth to power, Tony Khan and AEW have been actively courting Becky Lynch for months. Not just with money, although the offer is reportedly astronomical, but with something WWE can never provide: creative freedom and respect. Bully Ray's comments highlight the various possibilities facing Lynch, but what he couldn't say publicly is that WWE's treatment of their former golden child has been so appalling that even industry veterans are starting to speak out about it. Let's talk about something that WWE hopes you'll forget: Becky Lynch was literally the face of their company just 2 years ago. She headlined WrestleMania, she was the first woman to hold both the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships simultaneously, and she single-handedly elevated women's wrestling to a level of mainstream recognition that it had never achieved before. But somewhere along the way, WWE decided that the man was no longer part of their long-term vision. Was it because she spoke her mind backstage? Was it because she refused to be a corporate yes-woman who would smile and accept whatever storylines they gave her? Was it because she had the audacity to start a family and prioritize her personal life over WWE's demanding schedule? The evidence suggests all of the above, and it's absolutely sickening to watch. They took a performer who was legitimately one of the biggest stars in the entire industry, male or female, and systematically destroyed her credibility through booking decisions that made no sense from a business perspective. Those back-to-back losses to Liv Morgan weren't just wrestling matches, they were character assassination. They were WWE's way of sending a message to Becky Lynch and every other performer who might think they have leverage in contract negotiations. The message is clear: we can build you up, and we can tear you down just as quickly. What makes this situation even more infuriating is the behind-the-scenes manipulation that's been going on for months. While WWE has been publicly maintaining that they value Becky Lynch and want to keep her, their actions tell a completely different story. Sources close to the situation have revealed that WWE's contract offer was not just insulting in terms of money, it included restrictive clauses that would have essentially made Lynch a corporate prisoner. They wanted to control her social media presence, her outside business ventures, and even her personal appearances. This is the same woman who built her own brand through authentic social media engagement and grassroots fan connection, and WWE wanted to strip all of that away and turn her into just another corporate spokesperson. But here's the part that should make your blood boil: while WWE was playing hardball with Becky Lynch's contract, they were simultaneously using her image and legacy to promote their women's division and sell merchandise. They were profiting off her past accomplishments while actively undermining her future prospects. It's corporate hypocrisy at its absolute worst. The leaked contract details, and yes, there have been leaks, despite WWE's attempts to keep everything under wraps, reveal a company that views even their biggest stars as replaceable commodities. They offered Lynch a deal that would have paid her less per year than some mid-card male performers, while expecting her to maintain the same level of promotional responsibilities and creative commitments. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room that WWE absolutely doesn't want discussed. AEW's offer to Becky Lynch is reportedly unlike anything WWE has ever been willing to put on the table. We're talking about guaranteed creative control, a shorter schedule that would allow her to maintain work-life balance, and a financial package that would make her one of the highest-paid performers in professional wrestling, regardless of gender. But it's not just about the money, and this is what WWE fundamentally doesn't understand. AEW has built a reputation for treating their performers like human beings rather than corporate assets. They understand that happy, respected performers produce better work, which ultimately benefits everyone involved. Tony Khan has been open about his admiration for Becky Lynch's contributions to women's wrestling, and sources indicate that AEW's offer includes not just performer responsibilities but also behind-the-scenes creative input and potential executive producer roles. They're offering her a chance to help shape the future of women's wrestling rather than just be another cog in WWE's corporate machine. The contrast couldn't be more stark. On one side, you have WWE, a company that built their fortune on Lynch's shoulders and is now trying to lowball her when it comes time to pay the bill. On the other side, you have AEW, a company that recognizes her value and is willing to invest in her long-term potential both as a performer and as a creative force. One of the most disgusting aspects of this entire situation is how WWE has attempted to use Becky Lynch's role as a mother against her in contract negotiations. Industry insiders have revealed that WWE executives have made comments suggesting that Lynch's priorities have changed since becoming a mother, implying that she's no longer as committed to her wrestling career. This is exactly the kind of sexist, outdated thinking that women in every industry have to deal with, and it's particularly galling coming from a company that has built their brand around promoting women's empowerment and equality. They can't have it both ways. They can't promote themselves as progressive champions of women's rights while simultaneously using traditional gender stereotypes to justify paying their female performers less money. The reality is that Becky Lynch has consistently proven that she can balance motherhood with being a top-tier professional wrestler. Her performances since returning from maternity leave have been every bit as compelling and athletic as her work before becoming a mother. The suggestion that she's somehow less valuable or less committed because she has a family is not just wrong, it's deeply offensive and potentially illegal. What's even more infuriating is that male performers who become fathers are never subjected to this kind of scrutiny or questioned about their commitment levels. When male wrestlers have children, it's celebrated as a positive development that might give them additional motivation and depth as performers. When female wrestlers have children, suddenly their dedication and long-term value are called into question. With Becky Lynch's contract expiring on June 1st, the next few days are crucial, but not for the reasons WWE wants you to think. This isn't just about whether one performer stays with one company or moves to another. This is about whether WWE is going to continue treating their talent like disposable corporate assets or finally learn to respect the people who actually generate their revenue. Will an announcement be made soon? Probably, but don't expect WWE to be honest about why they lost one of the biggest stars in professional wrestling. They'll spin it as a mutual decision or suggest that Lynch chose family over career, but the truth is that they had every opportunity to keep her and chose corporate greed over basic human decency. Where will she choose to compete next? If she has any sense of self-worth and professional pride, she'll choose the company that actually values her contributions and treats her with the respect she deserves. The wrestling world holds its breath as it awaits the next chapter in the story of Becky Lynch, the man, but one thing is absolutely certain: whatever happens next will be a direct result of WWE's failure to appreciate what they had until it was too late. This isn't just about Becky Lynch anymore. This is about every female performer who has ever been undervalued, every wrestler who has ever been treated as expendable, and every fan who is sick of watching corporate politics destroy the careers of performers they love. The outcome of this situation will send a message to the entire wrestling industry about whether talent still has any leverage against corporate power, and whether companies like WWE can continue to treat their performers like garbage without consequences. The clock is ticking, and WWE's reputation hangs in the balance. Let's see if they're smart enough to realize what they're about to lose, or if they're going to learn this lesson the hard way. WWE has disrespected Becky Lynch for the last time, and if you're not absolutely furious about what they've done to the man, then you haven't been paying attention. They've systematically destroyed the most over female wrestler of the modern era, fed her to Liv Morgan twice like she's some nobody jobber, and now they're acting surprised that her contract expired on June 1st. Are you kidding me? This isn't just contract negotiations gone wrong, this is character assassination of the highest order, and every single wrestling fan should be demanding answers. WWE took the woman who carried their women's division for years and treated her like yesterday's garbage, and now the wrestling world is about to lose one of the greatest performers of all time because of corporate incompetence and backstage politics that would make your blood boil if you knew the real story. Let me break down exactly how WWE systematically dismantled Becky Lynch's credibility, because this goes way deeper than just a couple of losses to Liv Morgan. This is a calculated demolition job that started months ago, and if you think it's coincidental, you're being naive. Remember when Becky was the most over wrestler on the entire roster? When crowds would lose their minds every time her music hit? When she was selling more merchandise than half the male roster combined? WWE had lightning in a bottle with the man character, and what did they do? They slowly, methodically killed it. First, they watered down her character with nonsensical storylines that made no sense for someone of her caliber. Then they started booking her in matches where she looked weak, indecisive, and frankly stupid compared to the badass persona that made her a superstar. But the real insult came with these Liv Morgan losses, and folks, these weren't just any losses. These were designed to humiliate her. Think about it logically for 2 seconds. Becky Lynch, the woman who main event WrestleMania, who held championships for over a year, who was considered the face of the women's division, suddenly can't beat Liv Morgan. Not once, but twice. Back-to-back defeats that made her look completely incompetent. That's not booking, that's a hit job. And here's what's going to make you even angrier: according to backstage sources, Becky was told these losses were temporary setbacks that would lead to a bigger storyline. Well, guess what? Her contract expired on June 1st, and that bigger storyline never materialized. They lied to her face while systematically destroying everything she built. Now let's talk about this contract situation, because the timeline here is suspicious as hell, and if you're not connecting the dots, you're missing the biggest story in wrestling right now. Becky Lynch's contract didn't just expire, it was allowed to expire by a company that clearly wanted her gone but didn't have the guts to release her outright. Here's what really happened behind the scenes, and this information comes from multiple reliable sources within WWE's corporate structure. Becky's contract negotiations started months ago, long before these Liv Morgan matches ever took place. WWE offered her a deal that was not only insulting financially but also included creative control clauses that would have essentially made her a puppet for their booking decisions. When Becky rightfully rejected that lowball offer, WWE made a decision that should infuriate every wrestling fan. They decided to punish her by destroying her character on television. Those losses to Liv Morgan. That wasn't coincidence, that was retaliation. They were sending a message: accept our terms or we'll make you look like a fool on national television. But here's where it gets even more disgusting. WWE executives were reportedly laughing in backstage meetings about how they were teaching Becky a lesson about her market value. They genuinely believed that by making her look weak on TV, she would come crawling back begging for whatever scraps they were willing to offer her. The arrogance is staggering. This is the same company that has struggled for years to create legitimate female stars, and when they had one of the biggest draws in wrestling history, they chose to destroy her rather than pay her what she's worth. It's corporate sabotage disguised as creative decisions. Wrestling legend Bully Ray recently offered his thoughts on this situation, and while his speculation about Becky wanting to focus on motherhood sounds reasonable on the surface, it's missing the real story that WWE doesn't want you to know. Let me tell you what's actually happening behind the scenes, because the truth is far more sinister than anything you've heard so far. Bully Ray suggested that Becky might be seeking a break from the grueling WWE schedule, but sources close to the situation tell a completely different story. Becky Lynch wasn't looking for time off, she was looking for respect. She wanted creative input in her storylines, she wanted to be booked like the main event star she is, and she wanted a contract that reflected her actual value to the company. Instead, WWE offered her a deal that would have made her nothing more than a glorified jobber with a fancy title. The contract reportedly included clauses that would have required her to lose matches whenever WWE deemed it necessary for business, with no input from her whatsoever. Can you imagine the audacity of trying to turn one of wrestling's biggest stars into a company doormat? And here's the part that should make every wrestling fan's blood boil: when Becky pushed back against these insulting terms, WWE executives reportedly told her that she was replaceable, and that they could make anyone the next Becky Lynch, if they wanted to. The disrespect is unbelievable. Bully Ray also mentioned the possibility of AEW making a play for her services, and let me tell you something, Tony Khan would be absolutely insane not to back up a Brinks truck to Becky's house right now. She's exactly the kind of established star that could instantly elevate AEW's women's division and give them a legitimate mainstream draw that WWE foolishly let walk away. Now here's where this story gets really interesting, and if you think WWE isn't in full panic mode right now, you haven't been paying attention to the subtle signs coming out of Stamford. The possibility of Becky Lynch showing up in AEW isn't just speculation anymore. It's becoming a very real nightmare scenario for WWE executives who are finally realizing they might have made the biggest mistake in company history. Think about what Becky Lynch signing with AEW would mean for WWE's women's division. They've spent years trying to build credible female stars, and just when they had their biggest success story, they threw it away because of corporate arrogance and penny pinching. Now they're left with a women's roster that, while talented, lacks that mainstream crossover appeal that Becky brought to the table. But here's the kicker: according to industry insiders, WWE executives are now trying to reach out to Becky's representatives to restart contract negotiations. After months of disrespecting her, after booking her to look weak on television, after basically telling her she's replaceable, they're suddenly realizing that maybe, just maybe, they made a catastrophic error in judgment. The reports suggest that WWE is now willing to offer significantly more money and creative control, but here's the problem: it might be too little, too late. When you spend months systematically destroying someone's credibility and then try to win them back with money, you're essentially admitting that everything you did was wrong, and frankly, Becky Lynch deserves better than groveling from a company that clearly doesn't value her. Meanwhile, AEW is reportedly very interested in bringing her aboard, and why wouldn't they be? She's a proven draw, she's got mainstream recognition, and she could instantly become the face of their women's division. Tony Khan has shown he's willing to pay top dollar for established stars, and Becky Lynch would be the biggest free agent acquisition in AEW's history. But let's dig deeper into the real reason WWE was so willing to let Becky Lynch's contract expire, because this goes beyond just money. This is about backstage politics, corporate egos, and a systematic campaign to undermine one of their biggest stars. The truth is going to make you absolutely furious. According to multiple sources within WWE's corporate structure, there's been a faction of executives who have been actively working against Becky Lynch for months. These individuals, who apparently have significant influence over creative decisions, felt that Becky had become too big for her britches, and needed to be brought down a peg or two. Can you believe the arrogance? Here's a woman who helped elevate the entire women's division, who brought mainstream attention to women's wrestling, who was selling merchandise and drawing ratings, and there were people within WWE who thought she needed to be humbled. It's corporate jealousy at its absolute worst. The campaign against her started subtly, storylines that didn't make sense for her character, booking decisions that made her look indecisive, and gradually reducing her role in major storylines. But it escalated dramatically when contract negotiations began, and that's when the real sabotage started. Those back-to-back losses to Liv Morgan. They were specifically designed to damage her credibility and lower her market value. WWE executives literally thought they could manipulate her into accepting a lowball contract by making her look weak on television. The psychological manipulation is disgusting. And here's the part that's going to make you even angrier. When Becky complained about her booking during these contract negotiations, she was told by WWE officials that she should be grateful for the opportunities she was being given. They were actively destroying her character on TV and then telling her to be thankful for it. The level of disrespect is absolutely staggering. Now let's talk about what WWE's mishandling of Becky Lynch means for their future, because this isn't just about one wrestler. This is about a pattern of corporate incompetence that's going to cost them millions in the long run. If you think losing Becky Lynch is just a minor setback, you're completely wrong. Becky Lynch wasn't just another wrestler on the roster, she was a franchise player. She was someone who could carry storylines for months, who could make other wrestlers look good just by being in the ring with them, and who had the mainstream recognition that WWE desperately needs in today's entertainment landscape. And they threw it all away because of corporate ego and backstage politics. The ripple effects of this decision are already being felt throughout the company. Other wrestlers are watching this situation and asking themselves, if they'll do this to Becky Lynch, what will they do to me when my contract comes up? The message WWE has sent is clear: no matter how successful you are, no matter how much money you make for the company, they'll destroy your character if you don't accept whatever terms they offer. This creates a toxic environment where wrestlers are afraid to negotiate for better contracts because they know WWE will use their television programming as a weapon against them. It's corporate bullying disguised as creative decisions, and it's going to drive talent away from the company in droves. But the financial implications are even worse. Becky Lynch merchandise sales were consistently among the top performers for WWE. Her matches drew higher ratings than most of the men's division. She was a proven draw for live events and pay-per-views. Losing her doesn't just mean losing one wrestler, it means losing millions in revenue across multiple revenue streams. This situation with Becky Lynch exposes a much bigger problem in professional wrestling, and if you're not absolutely outraged by what this reveals about how wrestlers are treated by these major corporations, then you're not paying attention. This isn't just about one contract dispute. This is about the systematic devaluation of talent and the corporate arrogance that's destroying the wrestling industry. WWE's treatment of Becky Lynch sends a clear message to every wrestler in the industry: we own you, and if you don't accept whatever scraps we throw your way, we'll destroy everything you've worked for. It's corporate terrorism disguised as business negotiations, and it should make every wrestling fan sick to their stomach. But here's what makes this even more infuriating. WWE has been complaining for years about their inability to create mainstream stars, and when they finally had one in Becky Lynch, they chose to destroy her rather than pay her what she's worth. The self-sabotage is absolutely mind-boggling. This also highlights the urgent need for wrestlers to have more leverage in their contract negotiations. The current system allows companies like WWE to use their television programming as a weapon against talent who dare to ask for fair compensation. It's a form of corporate blackmail that would be illegal in any other industry. The wrestling industry needs to wake up and realize that talent is the most valuable asset these companies have. Without wrestlers willing to put their bodies on the line for our entertainment, there is no WWE, there is no AEW, there is no wrestling industry at all. Yet these corporations continue to treat wrestlers like disposable commodities rather than the valuable performers they are. Becky Lynch's situation is a wake-up call for the entire industry. If someone of her stature and drawing power can be treated this poorly, what hope do lesser-known wrestlers have for fair treatment? The system is broken, and it needs to be fixed before more talented performers are driven away from the industry entirely. The wrestling world stands at a crossroads right now, and Becky Lynch's departure from WWE represents everything that's wrong with how these corporations treat their talent. This isn't just about contract negotiations gone wrong, this is about corporate arrogance, systematic disrespect, and the deliberate destruction of one of wrestling's biggest stars. WWE had the opportunity to keep one of their most valuable performers, someone who brought mainstream attention to women's wrestling and helped elevate the entire division. Instead, they chose to play petty games, destroy her credibility on television, and ultimately drive her away from the company. It's corporate incompetence of the highest order. But here's the thing, we as wrestling fans have the power to hold these companies accountable for their actions. Every time we support wrestlers who are being mistreated, every time we call out corporate BS when we see it, every time we demand better treatment for the performers who entertain us, we're making a difference. So I want you to get angry about this situation. I want you to share this video, comment below with your thoughts on how WWE has mishandled Becky Lynch, and let the wrestling world know that fans won't stand for this kind of disrespectful treatment of talent. The more noise we make, the more likely it is that these companies will think twice before pulling stunts like this in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell because we'll be following this story closely and bringing you all the latest developments as they happen. The wrestling world is changing, and WrestlingNewsCC will be here to make sure you know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. If you thought tonight's story was wild, trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. So don't stop now. Click on the video right here on your screen to continue the chaos, the drama, and the inside scoop only we deliver. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and join the WrestlingNewsCC family, where the real stories of WWE come to life. See you in the next one.